Hello again, Anna here, and today I would like to talk to you about elementals. The elementals are all around us all the time. Generally they're quite shy and you won't actually see them, but some people who are sensitive like myself can actually feel their presence, and they're starting to make themselves known with little sparkles of light. And I actually see sort of little outlines, little body shapes when I'm doing my videos and doing my live feeds, or even when I'm out in the garden. They like to come and say hello. They're very community minded, and they love being around people that are in tune with their vibration. Now, there are 4 different types of elementals. We have our earth elementals, which are beings such as fairies, pixies, gnomes, tree spirits, trolls, dwarves. They dwell on the earth side of the elemental realm, caring for the earth, on top of the earth and also below the earth. And I have actually had interactions with some of the fire elementals living under the earth, which is really interesting. So that is their domain. So these may very well be caves in their dimension. Some of the phoenixes and the dragons, which are some of the fire elementals, also including salamanders. So they're interesting. They're very quiet. I don't have a lot to do with the fire elementals. I don't have a lot that I can say about those to you from my personal experiences. I've had lots of experiences with the earth elementals, which I will share after we talk about the other 2 types of elementals. There are also the air elementals, which care for the wind and the atmosphere that is around us. So the air elementals are classed as the Sylph and the Imps. And again, I don't have a lot of information I can share with you about those. I haven't had personal experiences yet. As soon as I do have someone, I will let you know about what I have experienced with them. So we've looked at this earth, air, fire, and there's also there are also the water elementals, which care for the rivers, the streams, and the oceans. And again, I haven't had a lot of experience with water elementals. Basically, I can share with you today some of my experiences with different types of earth elementals. They are all different and very different personalities, different ways that they interact with us. So as a house healer, I come across a lot of elemental beings that are outside in the environment, but also sometimes they can become trapped in homes. They can wander in with you. They can actually sometimes hitchhike on your back, and they'll come into your house. And then they hop off and they're just roaming around. And sometimes they can come in on pot plants, which is something I experienced recently through a house clearing job. So one of my main experiences that I can share with you was with a very large elemental that was present in an abandoned building. Now, I was in this abandoned building with a group of other people, and this elemental showed itself to me in my mind's eye. So it showed itself to me up here, but also with my physical eyes, and I could see its presence. Now, this energy came forth to me, and we had many conversations over months. Now I haven't seen him for a very long time. He came forward to work with me and management to do some land clearing in a particular area in Tasmania. And he was very important as part of his realm. It was like he was a representative of the elemental realm, as I was working with the land spirits, and I sort of hold the space with management as they come through and do the work. And he was there. He was very tall, very dark in colour, very sort of furry. And he told me that he was a troll elemental. Now, troll elementals are very peaceful, very quiet. They like their solitude. They don't like to be messed with. So I never ever sort of went looking for him. He would always show himself to me when I was in this building and we would go and do the work that we needed to do. And I haven't seen or heard from him since. So maybe that was a one-off experience that we had together. But he was amazing, and the way that he assisted and worked in cooperation with these other energies that were present to help clear some detrimental energy that was on some land. Now, there's another type of earth elemental that I have worked with, which are the gnomes. Now, people will roll their eyes. Yeah, like, no, these aren't real. Yes, they are real. I've had people who claim to be non-spiritual and non-psychic who have actually seen little people with peaked hats roaming around in their homes. Now, gnomes are rather interesting. Generally, like the rest of the elementals, they're outside tending to the earth, tending to our gardens. Sometimes they come inside, and quite often as a house healer, I will find gnomes, because I'll ask my pendulum, I use my pendulum dowsing, and I'll ask, are there gnomes present here? Because the client will describe some of the happenings that are going on in their home, and I'm like, yep, I have an idea what type of energy this might be. So gnomes, as I was saying, trolls can be quite shy in my experience, and very like their solitude. Gnomes can be a little bit mischievous. They can be a little bit cheeky. They love junk rooms. They love storage rooms where there are things piled up high, where there are lots of books and toys and anything you can think of. I would probably class them a little bit like hoarders, just in my experience. This is what I've experienced with them. They just love stuff, like materialistic things. They're very materialistic in their nature. And when people change the status quo in their home and go, okay, I think we might turn that room into a bedroom, and all the items that were in there are relocated, repurposed, go to op shops, get sold. It's a little bit like, oh my God, all that stuff's gone. So they can be a little bit mischievous. I had an experience with some family friends where they did that exact thing, is that they turned their spare room, which was classed as, the storage room, into a bedroom. So the young person that moved into this bedroom was being woken up at night, felt like she had someone jumping on her bed. There was someone tapping her on the forehead like this, and it was like, oh, this little thing was very, very frustrated because no one had explained to him what was going on, why everything was being moved. They just came in and moved everything out because it's their home. They didn't realise there was a little being in there that would be frustrated by these things being moved. So anyway, I tuned in and I worked out which type of elemental being it was, had a conversation. And I said to him, do you understand that this has become a bedroom for the child? She needs her own room now. And they're kind of nodding and they're kind of, yes. So respect and conversation goes a long way. It really, really does. And I had this continued conversation with them and they're like, oh, I understand now. And I talked to the client and I said, is it okay if I ask them if they'd like to go into the shed? And it was, yes, okay. So these little beings were happy because I think there was more than one, but there was one that came forward as the spokesperson, that off they went. I visually saw them move outside, go out the back door, and off they went to the shed and they were happy again. Okay, so it's all about cooperation and building respect and building a relationship with these beings. And they were quite happy to move out into the shed. No more problems in the bedroom. Sleep has been perfect. No one jumping on the bed and pulling on the covers. Another experience I can share with gnomes was with a friend in his shed. A family had moved into a new home. He's a wood turner, and little did he know, in his shed there were a family of, or a community of, gnomes and maybe other beings. I've only had gnomes come forward, so I can't say that they are the only beings that were there. Anyway, he moved in with all his wood turning equipment and all his bits and pieces and his spanners and his pliers and his little clamps and things. Things started going missing, and they messaged me and went, I think we've got an issue in the shed. And I'm like, okay, I'll come and have a look. because they're local. I wanted to go and have a look and have a cup of tea with them while I was there. And as I was there, I could see these little beings walking up and down the hallway. They just come and go, because the people that own this property, very spiritual, very psychic, and they're okay with them being there. But taking things from the shed when our wood turner needs to use them is not on. So what I was shown, what management showed me, was taking them an offering. So the lady of the house makes the most amazing biscuits. So she had some biscuits on a plate, and they took out a drink. And he said he'd probably feel a bit like a fool, not really sort of having anyone there to talk to. But I said, they're there. Talk to them with the same amount of respect that you would talk to your wife, your family, your best friend. And he sat there and he had a conversation with these beings. He showed them that he bought an offering. He came back into the house, went out a little while later. Some of the tools had reappeared again. So this is where the respect and the just building cooperation and just building niceness and kindness goes a long way. And they're there quite happily now, and he works there quite happily. So they actually formed this relationship and this bond. I quite often, when I go into places where I know there are elementals, is that I will go and make a point of greeting them and saying hello and saying how are you, and I hope everything's well for you. Another example that happened very, very recently, after a storm in the back of a friend's yard, a statue had fallen down. It was built of wood. It wasn't built by them, and it wasn't built by the previous renters that had been there quite a long time. And my friend went down, stood it back up again, up against the fence where it was, went back inside. For the next 2 to 3 weeks, the people that were living in this house didn't sleep very well. Like, they weren't being menaced, but it was uncomfortable. They didn't feel right. They couldn't sleep. It felt different. I rock on up for a visit, and I'm there, and we have lunch, and we're poking around, through some bits and pieces in a box. And all of a sudden I felt very, very unwell. And she'd mentioned to me, we haven't been sleeping well, and we're not quite sure what's causing it. And I didn't think any more of it. And I'm poking around in this box. And anyway, I stand up, and all of a sudden I can see a mass of energy in front of me. Couldn't quite grasp. It didn't want to show itself. I mean, they'll only show you if they want you to see them. It didn't show itself, but I could feel its energy, and I was feeling quite unwell. Now, I knew it wasn't anything that I would call dark, because it didn't give me that type of feeling. It wasn't mischievous. It wasn't detrimental in that way. Or harmful was the word I was looking for. It wasn't harmful, but it was a presence that wasn't meant to be there. So we had a conversation. One of the other ladies who was there said, I can see there's a being in front of you and a being behind you. And I'm like, okay. She lent me her pendulum because I used the dowsing. And I asked some questions. Are you from inside the house? Are you from outside? So you go through the questioning to find out, can we help this being? Does it need assistance? It had come forward and shown itself to me. So I'm like, okay, generally when they do that, they're looking for assistance. So we had the conversation. It was from outside. And then when the ladies went, the statue, the sculpture thingy that fell over. And I'm like, I sort of felt really sort of quavery down here. So it was telling me I'm connected to that. So we went outside. And when we're there, I'm like, yep, this is a gatekeeper energy. This is an ancient energy that needs to be here. And when she had stood up the statue and innocently just put it back up against the fence, this energy had come inside with her because it was looking for help. It was looking for help, and she didn't realize, didn't understand. So it was kind of present in the home, waiting for someone to show up that could help. So we had a conversation with it, and it was most happy to come back outside once it understood that its statue, its sculpture was going to be put back on the fence. The information that I give you is from my experiences, and there are no books written on this. So this is a learning experience for me. So looking at this object, I would class this as a power object. It's one of our classes that we use, one of our aspects that we look for when we do the house healing. Because the power object had been disturbed, the energy that was attached to it had gone looking for help and was causing a bit of mischief in the house. Anyway, we've got our lovely being to come back outside, made an agreement that the sculpture would be then again connected to the fence and quite safe, because it's a gatekeeper energy. That is all that I get when I look at it. It's not malevolent. It doesn't make me feel unwell, but I'm going, there's something here that's really important that it's here. There's a type of portal attached to it, but it doesn't go to a dark place. It goes to a nature, an elemental realm. So it's quite safe to leave that there, quite safe to have that there. And what came to me was, as I talk about quite often, multiple dimensions all happening in the same place at the same time. Who's to say that this sculpture isn't actually a physical statue in another dimension, and this gatekeeper energy that is there is the keeper of this space, of this sacred space. I'm getting a big tingle on this, getting all chilly about this, is that it's a sacred space in another realm that just happens to coincide on this earth realm. As we were talking to this energy, what I was seeing in my mind was an offering plate. Like some natural things, you know, maybe a piece of bread and some honey and some flowers and a crystal. An offering plate to say, we know you're here, we want to offer you this as a sign of peace and that we can all live here quite safely. So the ladies made this offering plate once I'd left and gone home, and they'd messaged me and said, yep, we've taken it out. As we came in, one of the ladies said she saw the horn of plenty, which is a Wiccan symbol. So she looked up online and found a symbol of, or found a picture of a pan, like a fawn being, which made total sense to me as an earth being, as an earth protector. And it was really appreciated being acknowledged and having the ladies acknowledge it and make an offering. So that sealed sort of the peace of the property. The being is back doing his beautiful work. The ladies messaged me the next day to say they haven't slept this well in ages. So that's how the different realms can sometimes intermesh and overlap. That was the most amazing experience I've had for quite a long time. Sometimes when we're doing our house healing, we will come across dragons. Dragons quite often can be, again, they may be in a cave in their own realm, but they'll present here as being under the ground. I've also worked with a house that had phoenixes actually living under the ground, and that was rather interesting. I didn't interact with them, but they were just there. So as I have more experiences with the elemental realm, as I learn more about the elemental realm, I would love to share my experiences with you. So if you like what I'm talking about, please hit the subscribe button, share it with your friends, and I'm back every week with lots of interesting topics. Sometimes I'll talk spiritual, sometimes it'll be psychic, sometimes it'll be house healing, and the occasional paranormal video, because I love doing those too. So thank you very much for coming today. Stay safe and look after each other, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.